When 12-year-old David Freeman goes into the woods to find his younger brother, he has an accident and faints. 2 hours later, he wakes up and returns home, only to find that 8 years have passed. Curious about what happens next? Watch the full story. The adventure begins on the 4th of July, when there is a flying saucer competition in City Park. David, along with his dog, takes part in the event, but his dog doesn't do well. After the competition, David's younger brother Jeff teases him about his dog. Their parents soon arrive to pick them up, and the brothers argue during the car ride home. To calm things down, Jeff is dropped off to spend time with his friends, promising to be back before evening. While at home, David sees a girl he likes but feels too shy to talk to her. As evening approaches, David's mother tells him to go get his brother, and that's when the real adventure begins. David has to go through the jungle to find his brother. Even though he's small and scared, he takes his dog with him. Once they enter the jungle, David's dog starts acting strangely. Suddenly, Jeff jumps out from behind a tree to scare David, which makes him very angry. He wants to teach Jeff a lesson, but his dog runs off, so David chases after him. David comes across a strange pit and looks at it in surprise before accidentally falling in and losing consciousness. What happens next isn't shown, but for David, only 2 hours have passed. When he wakes up, he heads home and rings the doorbell. A strange old woman answers the door, and David is shocked. He asks her who she is and where his parents are. The woman is just as surprised as David. The woman at the door tells David that only she and her husband live there now. David quickly runs inside and heads to his room, only to find the house completely different and an old man in his room. Scared, David starts crying on the stairs. The elderly couple calls the police, who take David to the station. An officer discovers that David was reported missing 8 years ago. Shocked, they ask David many questions, and he answers all of them correctly: his name, his parents' names, and his school. David doesn't realize he has traveled 8 years into the future. He thinks he was only unconscious in the jungle for 2 hours. A policeman then takes David to another house and rings the doorbell. David's parents are told that their lost child has been found. When they see David, they are shocked because he hasn't aged at all. They hug him tightly, having lost hope of ever seeing him again. Meanwhile, an unknown alien object is spotted in the city and taken to NASA's research lab for study. David's parents are in disbelief. They ask him where he has been for so long, but David doesn't understand what has happened. They then introduce him to his younger brother Jeff, who has grown up over the 8 years and now looks older than David. At first, David can't believe that this older boy is his younger brother, but after talking to Jeff, he becomes convinced. Jeff shows David a missing poster from the day he disappeared, explaining that they never stopped searching for him. That night, David has a strange dream where someone is asking him for help. He wakes up from his sleep, startled, but his brother Jeb comforts him. Jeb assures David that the doctors will test him tomorrow to prove he's perfectly normal. Despite this reassurance, David struggles with the fact that he can't remember how he got aboard the spaceship. The next day, doctors conduct tests on David, asking questions and monitoring his brain activity. Suddenly, David's mind connects with a computer, and he draws a detailed image of the spaceship he encountered, astonishing everyone present. However, this revelation worries David because he fears he won't be able to live a normal life. David decides he wants to leave NASA, expressing his desire to the doctors and asking them to call his parent. They respect his wishes without pressuring him, although the situation remains highly unusual. A few days later, NASA's director meets with David's parents and requests permission to investigate David's case further for just 2 more days. Reluctantly, David's parents agree to the investigation. They also convince David that they would figure out what happened to him to prevent it from recurring. With apprehension, they send David to NASA's research lab. Upon arriving at the lab, David spots a room containing the same alien spaceship. Strangely, David hears voices emanating from it, though no one else does. He is then assigned a room of his own, but he finds it unsettling that the door is locked. To pass the time, he turns on the TV, which airs unfamiliar songs and odd shows from a time period different from his own, making him uncomfortable. During this time, a girl named Caroline and a robot visit David's room. Caroline tries to connect with David by bringing him a song and engages him in conversation. After Caroline leaves, David finds himself alone again. In the evening, feeling frustrated, he calls his parents and complains about being locked in his room. His father reassures him, promising to come get him the next day. The following day, doctors begin their examination. They connect David to a computer system designed to probe his thoughts, hoping to unravel the mysteries of his experience. They are initially astonished by the volume of data in David's mind, despite his inability to recall anything consciously. Much of this information surpasses human understanding. As they decode some of the data, they make a startling discovery. David had traveled to a distant planet called Phelan, located 560 light-years from Earth. His journey took only 2 hours due to traveling faster than the speed of light, but due to the theory of relativity, 8 years had passed on Earth during that time. The doctors continue questioning David, eager to learn more about his extraordinary journey and the knowledge he carries from his unexplained adventure. David's mind was actively creating a map of star systems on the computer, showcasing the vast amount of data he possessed. The researchers realized the magnitude of information David held and were determined to unravel its secrets. Overwhelmed by everything he was learning, David felt trapped and distressed. In anger, he stormed out of the lab. Back in his room, Caroline visited him and informed him about his upcoming schedule for the next week. David, still upset, demanded that she go and inform his family about everything happening. That night, David heard the mysterious voices again, pleading for his help. Using NASA's robot, he ventured out of his room and made his way to where the alien spaceship was kept. Standing before it, David faced a pivotal moment. The spaceship's door opened on its own, and David ascended into it using floating stairs. Inside, the spacecraft was vastly different from anything he had seen before. Its advanced alien AI recognized David as the Navigator due to the star maps in his mind. Meanwhile, a security guard monitoring the CCTV cameras noticed the spaceship's door opening and alerted the entire staff. They rushed towards the hangar, but by then, David had already commanded the ship's computer, Jan, to exit. Despite being tethered, the spaceship, far superior in technology, easily broke free from its restraints and escaped the hangar. David, frustrated with everyone around him, commands the AI to take him away. The spaceship ascends into the sky, and David experiences zero gravity. Though he decides he doesn't want to go too high and instructs the AI to return, the spaceship obediently hovers near the same hangar. This time, David orders it to accelerate straight ahead, thrilling him as he feels in control. While David revels in excitement, the alien AI remains unemotional and focused on executing commands. This independence brings David great joy because he feels empowered piloting the ship. Meanwhile, NASA personnel are bewildered at how David managed to enter and control the spaceship. David directs Jan, the AI, to land in a remote location, citing natural needs as the reason. Meanwhile, NASA locates the spaceship and dispatches 3 helicopters toward it. During this time, David and Jan engage in conversation, providing further insight into the unfolding events for the audience's benefit. The alien AI, designed to search for life in the universe and study planets with life, took David along as part of its mission. However, due to an accident, it couldn't return David to his original time, and its memory was damaged, leading to all its data being stored in David's mind. Now, as a human-AI hybrid within David's mind, the AI contemplates the dangers of time travel for a human. It faces a dilemma. Should David travel to the past to rectify the situation or remain in the present? Meanwhile, the alien AI itself needs to return to its planet, and the star maps required for navigation are stored in David's mind. During their conversation, David notices NASA helicopters approaching, prompting him to swiftly board the spaceship and instruct Max to depart immediately. The ship accelerates so rapidly that it evades detection by Earth's surveillance systems. Having developed a rapport with the alien AI, David names it Max. He directs Max to find a place on Earth where humans can't reach, but aliens won't discover him. Max complies by taking David deep into the ocean, where they explore the underwater world and encounter various creatures Max has collected from different planets. Max explains to David the importance of returning any living beings he collects from planets back to their original time to avoid paradoxes and maintain the universe's order. As an AI, Max emphasizes the necessity of adhering to universal systems and protocol. He tells David that time travel isn't safe for humans. David witnesses various strange aliens firsthand, including a small, two-eyed creature that he finds adorable. Meanwhile, Max reveals that its home planet was destroyed by an asteroid, causing concern among NASA's staff, particularly Dr. Faraday, who leads the mission to locate Ian, David's father, call, informing Faraday of his intention to retrieve his son. Among the commotion, NASA's former team member Caroline is reported missing. Faraday directs everyone to begin searching for her. Meanwhile, the story reveals that AI Max scans David's brain to help him recall everything he experienced. Once David remembers, Max relinquishes control of Ian to David, who begins piloting the spacecraft himself. He surfaces Ian from the ocean, but upon descent, the spacecraft begins to plummet towards a crash. With his memories flooding back, David locates the controls and averts disaster just in time. Meanwhile, NASA locates Caroline, who had actually gone to David's parents to reveal the truth. However, NASA intervenes and arrests Caroline, ordering David's family to remain confined at home. David pilots Ian swiftly, using the star map in his mind to navigate. He speeds towards Tokyo, but redirects towards his American home in San Francisco within minutes. In a desolate area, David halts Ian and approaches a passing driver for assistance, but they panic at the sight of him. The car playing music adds to the tension. AI Max asks David about the music playing in the car, and David explains that it's enjoyable music. Max downloads the music into its system and begins playing it. Meanwhile, news broadcasts report sightings of a mysterious flying object around the world, causing Dr. Faraday to realize it's Ian. David stops Ian near a gas station and uses a payphone to call his parents, shocking the attendant with his presence. Meanwhile, a crowd gathers, mistaking Ian for a fake spaceship and wanting to take pictures with it. David quickly returns to Ian and departs, leaving the bewildered onlookers behind. David reflects on the situation, wondering what might happen if Ian is discovered by others and how they might react. He then continues his conversation with his family. David decides to head home, though he's unsure of the exact location. In a quick move to signal his brother, he launches fireworks. Meanwhile, Dr. Faraday dispatches the military to capture Ian and David, intensifying the pursuit. David spots his family but also notices the approaching military, realizing he can never stay with them under constant surveillance. He bids a tearful farewell to his family and swiftly returns to Ian, instructing Max to take them back in time. Ian activates its faster-than-light travel, FTL, and when David awakens, he finds himself back in the same jungle where his journey began. He hurries home and discovers no trace of the UFO. Back at home, he finds his parents preparing holiday fireworks and eagerly awaiting his return. Overjoyed, David joins them, and he surprises his younger brother Jeb with the small alien creature he had befriended on Ian. As they watch the firework, David glimpses the aliens returning to their planet, marking the conclusion of his extraordinary adventure.